Who among us hasn't on occasion experienced some memory loss, the episodic bane of flatulent membrane, aka brain fart, as evidenced by grasping a door handle and not remembering whether you just closed the door or were about to open it, or in milder cases, opening the medicine cabinet or popping the car hood and not recalling which of the contents therein led you to open it. Or perhaps for you it might take the form of entering a bank and wondering whether you're there for a withdrawal, a loan, access a safe deposit box, or just to help yourself to the complimentary cookies and tea. Or how about looking in the mirror and not recognizing who it is that's looking back at you? I'm sure these are commonly experienced by most of us. I clearly remember visiting the doctor's office, signing in, and having to leave the purpose of your visit column blank. I didn't remember why I was there. However, I was assuaged by the consoling thought that if it was serious enough, I'm sure the doctor would find out. Now, this living in the now condition can be more than a mere inconvenience. Consider approaching an intersection in a speeding vehicle, and as much as you are led by your conscience to heed the rules of the road, you just don't have enough time to consult the vehicle code book to see what color light corresponds to stop and go. That's why you see drivers pulled over at the curb, trying to figure out where they were going, where they're coming from, what color means stop, slow. They're confused. I'm sure you've seen motorists who mutter to themselves. They're just repeating driving directions to themselves. They figured this technique out and they resort to the verbal repetition of directions in order to keep them in working memory and accessible whilst driving. Some even hold a phone up to the ear to conceal the fact that they're really muttering directions to themselves. They're embarrassed, they're ashamed. It's a sad, pathetic subgroup because this group of people is willing to risk a moving violation ticket for talking on the phone in a moving vehicle when in fact they're not talking to anyone. They would rather have a ticket though than be exposed. The horrific alternative would be to emerge, come out from the monologist's closet and face that social stigma of being a self-talker, a mutterer of directions. And the most egregious group of drivers are those who sing at the top of their lungs directions to themselves. Before this condition was elevated by the New Age gurus to somewhat of a higher state, a consequence of truly living in the precious present, in a bygone era of past and future, the casualties of now were treated with slate and chalk. The standard medical procedure was to give the person a piece of chalk and a slate that was hung around the neck for jotting a play-by-play running commentary in all that they were involved in, tantamount to keeping a detailed diary, chronicling every nuance of activity, personal reminders. Granted, this therapy did have some inherent problems and side effects. For example, it was bulky and cumbersome. The largest slates were as large as a meter square, and patients often reported complaints of associated neck problems, curvature of the spine, not to mention how self-conscious it made the wearer feel. The introduction of the spiral notebook and the pencil was an upgrade of sorts, but it produced similar results, provided the wearer remembered the purpose for it being there. So, since then, many medications have been developed for treating nowness casualties, but there are also alternative methods for treating this condition, and to a growing list of possible options, I am proposing the latest technique which I've discovered and which I term connecting the dots. And since it's such a recent discovery, I'm also going to offer a brief rundown of how it came to be. This afternoon, on my way home, I stopped off at the WC, the loo, the toilet, and so as not to be conspicuous or arouse suspicion, I examined tiles while gathering my thoughts, trying to piece together a reasonable, cogent explanation for why I had entered the loo, the toilet for any non-British listeners. Whilst pondering that, I noticed the smooth entry and exit strategy of visitors. I marvelled at how flawlessly they operated, on task, purpose-driven, assertive. Some headed straight for the urinals, others made a line straight towards the stall, others went straight for the mirror to pluck a wayward eyebrow or recover a renegade eyelash. Compared to me, everyone had an agenda, a flawless execution, a rehearsed itinerary, no stalling, second-guessing, hesitating on their part. I was so enthralled I even approached a couple of visitors as they left, inquiring what their secret was, but they operated like robots, didn't even make a complete stop because they were in a rush to God knows where. The beautiful thing about it is that they knew where they were going. It was clear to them. It was obvious from their furtive glances at their watches and distant stares as I approached them, as if eyeing some distant target that was beckoning them, a destination that I was merely a distraction from. I was their encumbrance, just getting in their way. I was something to be sidestepped. I never got any coaching, no cogent response from any of these visitors. No one explained their secret as to how they did it. So I made a commitment there and then I would resolve this, and non-medicinally. By the time I got home, I'd forgotten my commitment, went into the toilet, and as I studied the patterns on the floor mat, as usual, wondering the same thing, and the reason I'm in here again, brain cells? Anyone? There were no giveaway clues, no signs to guide me, no hints, no pressure in the bladder, in the colon, no gas. I flared my nostrils in the mirror, no bats in the cave, that's clean, no signs of BO. I emerged committed to doing something about this condition. My psychologist, he used to suffer from something similar. He called it absent-mindedness. Okay, whatever, it's just a different term. He said even professors have been known to suffer from this. He told me about the notebook around the neck technique, old news. I did it anyway. He also recommended that for the bathroom problem, I create a list of every possible reason I can imagine for being in the bathroom and affixing it to the bathroom mirror to refer to as an aid in jogging my memory. I typed 150 items, taped them up there. Later this evening, as I was tracing the patterns on the bathroom rug, I remembered, well, I didn't really remember, I just saw the notebook dangling around my neck and wondered, why is it there? It was blank. Clearly I'd overlooked its purpose. Then I noticed the list on the mirror and I started reading through those 150 items, hoping that by the process of elimination I'd eventually arrive at the prompt that would trigger my memory as to the reason I'd entered the bathroom. I reached number 65 when I felt this strong throbbing in my right index finger and noticed that the purple digit was tightly wound by what appeared to be one end of dental tape, which was cutting off circulation. That was a eureka moment, definitely, because I realized then that I must have been in the middle of flossing or preparing to floss. But floss was number 35 on the list. I hadn't made the connection when I'd read it because floss looks like a noun, like a thing. And I do recall being confused at the time I was reading the list as to why it would have been included on there. I was puzzled. I should have written tape because I use tape, not floss. No, better still, I should have written taping because if flossing is what a flosser does, then taping is what a taper does. I'm a taper. Technically, I should have written taping. Now, this is how I arrived at connect the dots solution. I asked myself, what was it that had brought my attention back to my reason for being in the bathroom? What lent meaning and significance to my being in the loo? It wasn't that blank notebook hanging round my neck. It wasn't that useless, confusing list of options on the mirror, but it was that nagging sensation of the blood-starved finger. That throbbing served to draw my attention back to what it was that I had been doing moments prior. This was an epiphany disclosed in one self-contained insight. I perched myself on the toilet seat and jotted down this poignant reminder. Purpose. and meaning are not necessarily found by scouring the bathroom for something new, but by backtracking to what I had been doing previously beforehand. By tracing back the event that had brought me to the place I currently find myself doing what I'm doing now. So now whenever I wonder what the heck is it I'm supposed to be doing, I look back to where it was I just came from and plot a dot. Then I note where am I now, and I plot another dot. I connect those dots with a straight line, extending it forward, and I follow its trajectory. It's like dredging up from the murky depths, a submerged, sunken treasure which lends meaning and purpose. And if it looks like I'm heading down a well-trodden path of an imbecile, I ask myself, would an imbecile do this? And if the answer is yes, I ask myself, well then what would JC do? What would Jacques Cousteau do in this situation? And invariably, it tends to be a smooth sail from there on out. So where connecting the dots does not suffice, a JC consultation does just nice.
Don't tell me you didn't catch that rhyme. That was a doozy. That was good. Nice suffice. You don't hear that every day.
And if you did hear it every day, but had a poor memory and a great forgettery, you'd probably say you'd never heard it before. Either check your memory or you've never heard this before. But if you have heard it before, then good. Your memory's probably okay. But don't take my word for it. You know, have a doctor check that out. There's special doctors for that. Memorians, memory doctors. But like I said, connect the dots. Remember? Or did I forget to mention that part? Or do you think I forgot to mention that part because you forgot hearing me mention it? If you're not sure, you can play it back, connect the dots, and if that doesn't work, then consult JC. Jacques Cousteau. Splash!